Yeah, hi.
All right, and so we are watching Paul Green versus Junji Choi here. Paul Green on the left is going to be playing Blue Moon. Junji on the right is going to be playing Bushwhacker Zoo.
Right, and it looks like Junior has a extremely hand-heavy hand here.
Land heavy hand, maybe?
I said hand-heavy, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Yes.
He's got a land heavy hand.
Yeah, especially like the dream is to hit 3, like much like a burn deck. The dream is to hit 3 and then just never draw another land. And I think Junior already has 4 in hand.
Okay.
And especially with this kind of deck, even over a normal burn, the amount of synergy you need, you really want a good turn 2 or turn 3.
Yeah.
Because burning trees get increasingly embarrassing as the game goes on.
This is true, but I will say that the high number of lands is probably going to be pretty good against the fact that Paul just played a Spreading Seas on his stomping ground.
Yes.
And that is, that's an interesting choice. Paul is playing Blue Moon, and I have it on good authority from himself that this is the exact 75 played in Pro Tour Born of the Gods, I believe by Li Shitian.
And so Paul, with a really heads-up play there, if he Junior has played this Burning Tree deck a couple times, including in Indianapolis this weekend. And with the Spreading Seas, Burning Tree Emissary is no longer castable.
Right.
You still can play a Herbalist, but and that can chain it into a Burning Tree, but just naturally playing a Burning Tree is not possible on turn 2.
Right. Also, the Herbalist not getting the Revolt trigger, one of the cards from Kaladesh, from Aether Revolt. So if Junji did have a second fetch land, he could have made extra mana, but he did not. And as it is, Paul with a Bolt, taking care of the Experiment 1, and putting himself in a pretty decent spot. Like, Junji has bears on the board, but as long as Paul is able to keep pushing, keep getting threats off the table, should be fine. Paul also does have 2 main deck Master of Waves, and when he casts them, he will make, some stuff. We'll see if it's good enough. Again, if Junji only has red removal, Master of Waves is an insane card. If Junji has a path, though, Paul will have invested a fair bit of mana for very little benefit. Junji, though, does put himself to 12 here with this first with another fetch shock, and that can also be a factor in these games for Paul on he's got a lot of bolts, he's got snapcasters and things. So we will start with an Experiment 1. Paul says fine. Junji says, I do have Revolt this time, and I'll play another Hidden Herbalist. Paul is going to hit it with a Remand, though, and that's pretty good to, check the aggression a little bit. Paul untap, draw a card. Also, Blood Moon is really, really good right now.
Right. Despite the fact that Junji's deck is, realistically only a 2-color deck with white for, with the plains for...
Path?
Well, you have Path on the board, but it's mostly for Wild Nakatos.
Oh, true, yeah.
Right. With a Blood Moon on board, the Junji's is severely constrained on what he can do.
He can play like Curd Apes, but I think he might not be playing those because he's instead playing this card, which will pull up on the right here, Narnum Renegade. This is also from Aether Revolt. Is a death touching Curd Ape if you turn on Revolt, so pretty not bad.
Right. It gives you a lot of game against more fair decks.
Yeah, just like you get to trade your 1-drop for their whatever.
Right, if you trade this for a Glyph, you feel pretty happy. But it looks like Paul
might not even have another land, and that could be a problem seeing as he has at least 1 Cryptic in hand. Oh no, he does have a Steam Vents, but instead it looks like he's got a Vapor Snag. That'll go after the Experiment 1, and cost Junji a life, and then Paul has a Snapcaster Mage with which he is going to Snapcaster Bolt after, I believe, shocking himself there to get the Hidden Herbalist off the table. Junji now does have a Reckless Bushwhacker in hand. This could, with Paul tapped out, this could be a big chunk of damage. Play Experiment 1 or...
Right, so the problem here is the Hidden Herbalist in the hand...
is not on.
It's not on.
It's just a bear.
Right, so our turn, is a little less explosive because...
Also, did Junji just take himself off of red? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
this is fine.
Yeah, this is the max amount of damage you can...
And Paul looks like he's going to take...
He's going to take 6 here.
6? Yikes.
Go
Down
to
to
7.
7. All right, so pretty big explosive turn there from Junji with the chaining, but now Master of Waves blocks pretty nicely here.
Yeah, and let's also not forget the pro red here.
Yeah, I mean, Junji does not have a good attack. The board is protected against what he can do, and the bolt in Junji's hand is going to go, probably will now have to go face instead. He'll replay the experiment one, and looks like he'll kick the turn back. Draw here from Paul. And now, so this is where Paul starts to lock out the game, assuming, Junji doesn't go wide around his Master of Waves and then bolt him. And with the Cryptic and Remand that he has in hand, you'd have to think that he's pretty good at getting out. But this is going to be a Vidalcan Shackles, and we'll pull that up on the right. Vidalcan Shackles, pretty good grindy card, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that he went shields down this turn, though, a little bit concerning, because Junji certainly has draws where he could just, kill you this turn, right?
Yeah. I mean, Junji draws like...
So I think the big draw that Junji's trying to hit is Gore Clan.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's really good.
Gore Clan, I think you just win on the spot. Mm-hmm. But other than that, a Bolt is also a reasonable draw.
Sure. Attack with an Experiment 1. That'll get blocked by an Elemental token. Junji's going to pass it back to Paul. And now Paul can start taking control of the Bushwhacker and the Burning Tree as he sees fit. He does have 3 islands in play in Vidalcan Shackles. We'll let him do that. Takes the Bushwhacker and, yeah, just start attacking with it. Junji going to take 2, go to 8 here. Paul pressuring pretty hard, trying to close the game before Junji can really go over the top on him. 1 mana Rancor on a Burning Tree Emissary. It's a 4/2 with Trample now. So just has to get through.
So, I mean, he can block with the Master Waves and just kill it.
Right, but and then takes 3 Trample, goes to 4.
Correct. He can also throw a token behind it, take 1 less. Mm-hmm. But,
yeah, and it looks like he might be considering that just so that he falls to 5 instead. Because the Vidalcan Shackles, Paul can untap them, give the Bushwhacker back to Junji, and take over the Burning Tree instead.
So this is part of the reason why I didn't like the Shackles activation right here. Mm-hmm. The fact that he could have taken whatever Rancor was enchanting.
Right. So it looks like Paul just blocked with the Master of Waves. Elects to take 3, goes to 3. Goes to 4. So now he's just, he's very much in the danger zone in terms of dying to, like, if Junji draws a Tarkus command, he wins. I guess Paul has counter magic up now, so it actually doesn't matter.
Paul is remand Cryptic.
And Paul is actually just a bolt of his own away from closing the game. He's got 6 points of power on board with the Master of Waves, the token, and the Bushwhacker, so he can put Junji, he can swing in with 2 and hold up Cryptic, and I think he's basically got the game locked out.
Right. I think Paul gave Junji a window by taking the Shackles and just hitting with the Bushwhacker. If he had waited on it and just, end of turn take something, he could have done all this without ever having shields down, right? Because if the Cryptic, you can even play around the Gore Clan. You can just bounce whatever is targeted.
Right. And Junji is going to bolt face. Paul is going to let it resolve. You're not dead until you're actually dead, and we'll see what comes off the top here. Junji did go to 6 off that token attack. And his hand has another land, Simeon's Spirit Guide, not where you really want to be playing that card, and yeah, Paul is going to hit that with a remand.
Right. So this is going to allow Junji to recast it if he wants to, but if he does, you just Cryptic bounce it and you leave
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, so Junji going to scoop it up. Blue Moon getting the first game here over Bushwhacker Zoo. I don't know, just Junji's start just a little bit too slow. He had 6 lands in play at the end of the game there.
Yeah,
so.
I think he kept the 4-lander, which is fine if you never draw another land for the rest of the game.
Right, but you draw 2 or 3 and you just don't have the gas needed. He was really close. Paul was at 1, right? So one more Tarkus command, 1 more.
And Junior's draw just not really lining up. Paul certainly gave him a couple windows to have explosive turns. Paul went Vapor Snag, Snapcaster Bolt.
Yeah.
Gave Junior a huge window to resolve an enormous Bushwhacker, and he just wasn't able to.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's just I think it really does just come back to though just Junji not having the land, Junji having too many lands, not having the spells necessary for that one. And also Paul with the I did like sort of getting aggressive with just immediately Vapor Snag this and I didn't hate the Snap Bolt because it tapped because he had a Cryptic but he would already have been tapped out. And so from like he couldn't cast it after he cast the Vapor Snag, so like he had to do something with the mana. So Paul, I think, despite going shields down, also made like really efficient use of his mana, not like leaving stuff untapped for not just like leaving up 3 mana and doing nothing with it, instead using it to clear the board. Like a bolt on a Hidden Herbalist is almost the same thing as a bolt on the Burning Tree later. It's just like 1 extra point of damage.
I think part of it also was that Paul was playing around potential shenanigans with Mutagenic or Blossoming Defense, which is not unreasonable for this deck to run. You certainly can main deck a couple of Blossoming Defenses. And had Paul, waited on, because the Vapor Snag, Snap, Bolt play, could all have been done during attacks.
Right.
But had Junji had like a Blossoming Defense, like...
Then you just get punished with more damage.
You get completely wrecked.
Yeah. Blossoming Defense, very sneaky card. I don't know. You see it. It's not seeing much standard play now. I did see some play when the Pummeler deck was better, and also like Infect has sort of fallen off the face of the planet recently. SCG most recently had like I think 1 Infect list in the top 32 on the weekend. So like that's not. That's really that card's modern home, and there's not really a good. I don't know of any other deck. Maybe Junji plays 1 or 2 at the outside, but like it's not essential to the function of his deck, right?
Correct.
Whereas with Infect, it's pretty, especially with the banning of Gitaxian Probe. Like if anyone ever wants to play Infect again, which I mean maybe they don't, or maybe there just isn't like an agreed upon build yet, then.
Yeah, but the shift that a lot of people made with Infect once Gitaxian Probe was banned was, you add in a couple Groundswells. Mm-hmm. Maybe you go back to the Serum Visions package.
Right.
And that was the change. Like it wasn't cataclysmic.
Right.
But it looks like Paul accidentally revealed a card here.
When he was drawing.
Pretty easy fix here. The fix is no fix. You just revealed information.
Okay. So it looks like actually what's going to happen is it's going to get fixed with an extra draw and then a shuffle.
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused by that. If we were going to shuffle, I think we should have shuffled it in before drawing the rest of our hand.
Sure.
We might go ahead and ask our judge
what the specific
justification for this later. But my understanding was that, you can always reveal extra information if you'd like.
Right. You can play with your hand reveal.
You can play face up if you want. So the fact that you revealed a card to your opponent, well, it's like...
The thing is, if you play face up, it's an intimidation tactic. It makes your opponent, it makes them afraid because they see what they cannot beat and then they lose. But you only,
is that how it works?
I mean,
it's also like it makes your opponent feel a lot worse because they know about your Savage top decks.
True.
Ooh, so Junji has a pretty exclusive turn 1 here. We're gonna
Narnia Renegade
into a Goblin Guide,
and Paul's just immediately gonna play a Mountain and Bolt. But the Goblin Guide is still on the table. Junji did use a Simian Spirit Guide to put that out there, but 2 1-drops on turn 1, pretty good.
Yeah, if Junji can trade the Simian Spirit Guide in for like 4 damage, I'm pretty happy with it.
Sure.
If he's only gonna get an extra 1 hit in with it, if he's turning Simian Spirit Guide into shock, I'm a little less impressed.
Likewise, it could just be probably just like shock. That is a Strangleroot Geist?
Strangleroot Geist, yes.
Okay. Gonna reveal Spell Snare on top, but is also gonna hit Paul for 4, putting him to 14 here. We'll pull up Strangleroot Geist because it's not really a card that's seen outside of Mono Green Stompy.
You know what answers Strangleroot really well? The Anger of the Gods that Paul has in hands.
Whew! Yes, that would do it. Paul gonna shock himself off his Steam Vents though, going down to 12. Has a Serum Visions here, so looking to set up the top of the deck. Probably, if he doesn't have that third land, probably going to dig for some lands.
Yeah, it looks like Paul has a Blood Moon in hand.
Yeah, and honestly, I can sort of see the argument for keeping it in, but I'm much more likely to keep it in on the play than I am on the draw.
Right, on the draw it's a little... I mean, like, this situation, you're already behind on board, and you can't really afford to take a turn off. Also, Paul has a Spell Snare in hand that Junji knows about, but... can't really cast that off of Mountain.
Yeah. So in response to the Rancor, the Strangleroot Geist is going to get bolted. It's going to come back with a counter, and this is an attack for 5. Paul choosing to kill the Rancor instead of not taking the damage from the Geist this turn.
Right.
And that is going to be a Narnim Renegade.
Does Paul have a third land? He does. And this is going to be a pretty good anger of the gods.
Yeah, so Paul's going to go to set. Paul is going to be at 7 after that attack for 5, but that anger really mopping things up quite well. Junji now will play, and those are exiled. They're not in the graveyard. Junji's going to play a Wild in the Cattle, and presumably is going to play the Temple Garden. Yeah, okay. So now we're in a position where Paul is sort of massively in the lead as Junji has no cards in hand. Ooh.
Threads of Disloyalty.
Threads of Let's Go.
Okay.
We said this list was from 2013, and we meant it, folks. Threads of Disloyalty, 1 blue, control an enchanted creature with CMC 2 or less. Wow. So this Wild Nikadal is a 2/2.
It is a 2/2, but
Paul is about to play a Blood Moon.
Yes, and Junji, Junji currently has the option to fetch another mountain with this Bloodstained Mire.
Yeah, Junji realizes that is not the fetch you're looking for. 3 red Bushwhacker attack you.
Okay, that's actually, like, all things considered, probably the best draw in the deck.
Put Paul the 5 here. I mean, I'm still not really sold on, Junji's ability to win. There is a Snapcaster Mage in hand for Paul. He does have access to double blue, for other spells and stuff. So Paul, could have... Yeah, he has a Snapcaster Mage and another Blood Moon. I don't hate just, like, Snap Bolting. Snapcaster.
Yep, Snap Bolt, just play around any... Oh, Snap Serum Visions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you get his clock, is doubled now.
Right. And also, Junji has the problem of... it's a base green deck when you think about it. Yes, it runs Goblin Guys, but other than
this is where you want the Curd Apes instead of the Narnum Renegades.
Mm-hmm.
So gonna trade the Bushwhacker for the Snapcaster there. Paul gonna untap and draw. Draws another Snapcaster, so that's pretty good attack here.
I think we're pretty much seeing the
end of this one.
Yep.
Gonna play another Snapcaster Mage and Bolt Junji.
Snap Bolt. We're gonna put almost lethal on board.
Yep. Untap, draw, and play another island. Presumably attack for 4. I much prefer attack for 2. There's no reason to expose yourself to like Goblin Guide Bolt.
Yes.
Sure. Bam. Oh well, Paul does not care. Paul puts him to 1 and says go, and Junji's like, do this.
Here's a
burning tree. Spell Snare though, and that's gonna do it. Paul Green's gonna get it. 2 games to none over Junji Choi. Just Blue Moon doing his thing against Bushwhacker Zoo. Very, very good Anger of the Gods there from Paul. I think that, definitely something that you're boarding in against Bushwhacker Zoo, and quite frankly, against a deck that sort of has the grinding inevitability of Blue Moon with Vidalcan Shackles and even Master of Waves and whatnot. You have to play to the board very early as Bushwhacker Zoo. You can't just sit back and be like, oh, I will run these threats out one at a time, because then you run into, the bolts and the Snapcasters and things. You get threads and stuff, and you can't go wide around it. But then you go wide and you get angered. So Paul, with the right draws to punish sort of both axes of the Bushwhacker deck. If your opponent doesn't have Anger of the Gods, then I still think you're going to spam the board with creatures and just hope that it gets there. Again, Junji coming up just a little bit short. And Paul, with the Blood Moon, did shut off a lot of Junji's ability to do things. Like if Junji had drawn in a Tarkus command, like that's just not... It's not viable against you can't cast it when you're under a Blood Moon with no basic forest. So that was off. The Narnum Renegades were off. We saw the Burning Tree at the end there, but Paul having the timely Spell Snare. Spell Snare is one of those cards where you don't have the Spell Snare sometimes, and you're just incredibly sad. But other times you do have the Spell Snare and it's garbage because your opponent's playing Bantal Eldrazi. So like this card. Some lists, Ryan Overturf played a list this weekend at SCG with 4 in his Grixis Delver list, which he, has done for a while, but this card is not a very... this card is one where it's either, like, very, very good, or sometimes it's very, very off. But, excitingly, we have a backup match coming. We are watching... On the left, I believe we have Martin.
Correct.
And on the right... we have Greg Pino, and what on earth is this spicy brew Greg's playing? Actually, first off, life totals.
Yes, that would be an important thing.
Go.
So yeah, this is game 2. Mario's up a game here.
Okay. So we are so this is gonna be Martin Sheeler on the left. He is playing Emeria, and Greg Pino is on the right, and he's playing some blue-black monstrosity. I honestly don't know what this is. It has Ensnaring Bridge and Ashiok Nightmare Weaver and River of Tears. And Martin is going to sack a Mortar Pod token to get the Ashiok down a point of loyalty, because that Ashiok can indeed cast the Sun Titan very, very soon. So we'll adjust the match record here to show that Martin is up a game. So yeah, what do we have for life totals?
Martin's at 13 and Greg is at 21.
All right, so get those set up, and then we'll also. Did Greg say at all what he was playing?
Oh, this looks like a Tezzerator deck, based on the context of the Signet, the Bridge.
But also Ashiok.
Well, this is post-board, and I mean, I could definitely see an Ashiok in the Tezzerator deck, right?
Tezzerator, yes. And this is Greg Pino. Okay. Yeah, so with the Ensnaring Bridge in play.
There was also a Thopter token. The reason I say this, I saw a Thopter token in play earlier.
Yeah.
One made from Thopter Foundry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and here, the Stony Silence that Martin just played will turn off all the artifacts that Greg has, including the Darksteel Citadel and the Mox Opal. But this Ashiok Nightmare Weaver is, like, just going to keep plussing and eventually cast something.
If we can pull up Ashiok here, this is...
Ashiok, what a card. Standard, amazing card in Standard.
No, I love... no, wrong...
wrong. There's... Okay. There we go.
There we go.
Ashiok Nightmare Weaver. So, Collective Brutality here. Going to, looks like attempt to... And what is...
That's the negate.
Okay. Oh, that's the new negate. Okay. So Collective Brutality gets negated. Martin going to take a draw. So it looks like he de-sphered one Ashiok, but was, then the second one came down. I would be, if you're Martin, your best draw here is Flicker Wisp, because you cast Flicker Wisp on the D-sphere, you target the D-sphere, and then you
get both Ashioks.
You get both Ashioks. Gonna plus again though, just slowly getting milled. Get the Lone Missionary, exile a path and a land.
So next turn, Greg pretty much wins the game, right? Because he's gonna, if he ults Ashiok, he puts in all creatures exiled by...
No, the ultimate on Ashiok is exile all cards from all opponents' hands and graveyards.
Oh, right.
So the ult on Ashiok is great if your opponent is like your control deck and they can't really play to the board effectively. But honestly, I think that Greg might just be better suited by just like getting a Sun Titan and starting to hit for 6.
Yeah, he might also just be on the mill plan as well.
Ooh, but he gets another Sun Titan. But also the mill plan, it's slow, but it does work. And he has the ult whenever he wants it. The biggest thing is just like he cannot let this Ashiok get like de-sphered by so that's the Tezzeret Agent of Bolus. Looks like Martin's gonna respond though with a negate. We'll pull up Tezzeret anyways.
Mismatching arts on his negate.
Yeah. An unspeakable crime. Untap from Greg here. He'll draw. Plus Ashiok, Martin flips 3 cards. So Stony, Court Hussar, and yep, just gonna play another island to pass it back. So,
and it looks like Martin is pretty close to having an active Emeria, but has not drawn the card Emeria.
Yeah. Ooh, wow. Oh, that's unfortunate for Martin. 1 card further down, he would have been able to, play a Pithing Needle and name Ashiok with it. Greg gonna get some more stream readable dice for us, which we really appreciate.
Ashiok casually on 17 right now.
Yeah, gonna play a Sword of the Meek. Not necessarily the card that you're looking for. Martin does get to remand it though.
Pretty much just to cycle this.
Yeah, but Greg does recast because he definitely wants to keep his hand empty. And Martin has a Wall of Omens. This is gonna let him draw. Dude just needs to draw the Emeria, right? I don't know how many have been exiled though. So
yeah, if Martin also manages to draw, 20 creatures, he can also...
Oh, man. That's a Flicker Wisp and another D-Sphere and a Cortisar. Wow. Okay. So any of those would have been amazing. And now Greg has an Academy Ruins.
With the Academy Ruins, we're drawing really thin here. Greg is at a high enough life total that I'm not even sure Martin is able to apply a clock fast enough.
Sure. And he gets it. He exiles an Emeria successfully there. Gonna play a Welling Jar. Put that under there, and Martin is just going to get milled out of the game by this Ashiok.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, Greg had he had a point in the game where he had to decide whether or not he was going to go on the beatdown plane with Sun Titan,
Right.
or just mill the Ashiok. Personally, I think like in this matchup, I imagine Martin boarded out most of his removal, so like I don't hate just getting the Sun Titan.
Yeah, we did see a path flipped. At least one path got flipped to the Ashiok, but I'm really not. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not 100% sure. You know, I think honestly, what you probably do if I were Greg, I think I would have gotten the Ashiok to like 10 or so. Would have played the Sun Titan, started hitting with the Sun Titan while also. You know, because you're hitting, because then
mill
you
plane
keep
is still live.
because the mill plane is still live, but then Martin just has to deal with two things. Because if at any point, right, if Martin did draw Flicker Wisp or something, he gets both Ashioks, and then this game is just like stalled out, right?
Right.
Because Greg had literally no action. He was just drawing cards, playing them, and Martin eventually, you know, draws into a lone mission, or he just hits you like 10 times with it.
Well, don't forget, it was an Ensnaring Bridge out in play.
This is true.
But part of the problem with having the Ensnaring Bridge out is Greg can't ever leave up counter magic.
Right, and hang on a second, we're just having a bit of difficulty with our camera. Okay. Let's go see if we can mess with the camera down there. All right, so, oh yeah, also TX Rager is right. You can't actually attack with Sun Titan when you're okay. Yeah, we are not seeing the for whatever reason we're not yeah, okay, so that's an old play overlay. We are sorry about this, guys. This is not how it's supposed to go, but for whatever reason the computer has just dropped the. Can you switch the ports and see if that changes anything? Has dropped the play overlay. Yeah. Okay, so now hang on. We're seeing black instead of. Okay. Yeah, for whatever reason, this is continuing to give us some technical problems, but getting a lot of drivers installing. Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, we are not. Okay, so we're going to have to restart the stream, guys. We really apologize for this. This is not what we intend to do. But we are going to have to stop and restart the stream to see if we can fix the camera stuff. We'll be back as soon as we can.